I remember you sharing a story at the event I was at in New York about kind of how meditation popped into your life. Can you talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
Sure. Well, it's a great questions. I mean, I speak about them, but I don't, little bits, but I don't really get a chance to reflect on them in one whole like this. I am a very skeptical person by nature. I love science. I'm not into new age. I don't like woo-woo. I don't like ooga booga. I like big ideas. I like boundary breaking ideas. I like, physics and astronomy. And I love just big ideas, but it has to be grounded for me in something. And I think I'm my father's son because he was quite a brilliant mind and a scientist and a doctor. So I'm pretty, let's go back to 1968, 69. I'm pretty stressed. My first year in college, disorienting, just trying to get my bearings. I mean, in high school, I was the guy, the most valuable this and all that sort of stuff, which didn't really mean that much, but at least I knew my path in high school. Oh, I'm going to be a U.S. senator. And I had a column in my high school newspaper where I just sort of recounted all the things that were wrong with the world, classic 17-year-old. And the title of the column was called The Gripes of Roth. So, and so
that's great.
Just, one column after another, who's doing wrong. But
you have to publish that book at some point.
I know. Someone told me, a publisher said I could sell it sight unseen with just the title. And they said, just come up with 200 things that you don't like. And just, but so I heard about meditation, and there was a lot of crazy stuff going on. And I think about it, Berkeley at the time, and I'm like this one sort of normal guy. And I didn't want to get into a sect or a cult and a religion, and I didn't want nothing. So I didn't know what to do. And then, as it often happens, there was one person who I was working with at Swenson's. He had a master's in landscape architecture. He was taking some time off, and he was like down to earth. He was like a normal guy, but a good guy, not like uptight, good guy, open, interesting. And there was a calm about him. And I remember one time I came there at 10 o'clock at night because you get free ice cream. And I remember going back at 10 o'clock at night to get some ice cream. And Peter had just come out. His name was Peter Stevens, just come out. And he looked particularly good. And I said, where were you? He said, I was back meditating. Now he was meditating later than you usually do. But I said, well, tell me about it. And he said, I don't want to tell you, but you can go and find out about it at a center. And I said, I'm a really skeptical person. I don't believe in all that stuff. And he said, just go and hear the talk. So I went and heard the talk, and a person, gave a basic talk about TM, that it's easy and effortless. You don't have to believe in anything, and it's good for health. And afterwards I stood up. It's about 50 people in the room, and I, very smug 18-year-old know-it-all kid. And I said, well, how much of this stuff, but I didn't use the S word for stuff. I said, how much of this stuff do I have to believe in for it to work? And the woman who was the teacher, giving the talk, held up a piece of chalk in her hand, one hand, and she had another hand palm below, and she dropped the chalk into her palm. She said, you don't have to believe in gravity for gravity to work. You don't have to believe in this meditation for it to work. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I'll give it a try.
And just curious, when your friend came out from his meditation, what was your prior understanding of meditation, if at all, going into it? Did you have some awareness of it?
No, two things had passed my mind. There was a cousin who had come when I was still in high school and living at home, had come and visited for 3 days, and he was talking about meditation. And then when I was just talking about it, and there was no receptor site in my brain. It was like somebody said gobbledygook, it didn't nothing. And then in my second quarter or something at Berkeley, I was taking an astronomy class, and I was cramming with this friend who said that she had just been instructed in transcendental meditation. And I just remember sort of going, what do those words mean? Because I liked her. I thought she was great. There was instructed in trance. It's like, again, didn't mean anything. So then it was like 6. So it didn't have any feeling one neutral. It just, there was no bad or good. It just, I didn't have a place to put it. But then when things started getting tougher and more stressed, and I wasn't sleeping well, and I was falling behind in school, and I knew I needed something so I could sleep better at night, so I could concentrate more, and so I could just also have some internal sense of equanimity, because every day there was 3,000, police and fire, and so I needed something.
Yeah.
So then when he said the words, then it went, oh.
Yeah, and I'm curious a little bit about. I mean, there's a bunch here that I'm excited to dig in with you. But I'm curious about kind of this grounded, this kind of practical. Like you said, you're the only person on campus that's not a druggie hippie. And you said that you don't really love woo woo. And it's an interesting thing because it seems like that. Kind of way of being, your maybe your how you were raised, maybe it's just who you are. But this kind of like more grounded approach to life has really been important for you in kind of differentiating yourself as you are in what some would consider to be woo woo. I mean, you're coming from right, yeah. So you come from Marin County, from Berkeley. In Columbus, Ohio, I was hiding that I meditated for the first 10 years that I was doing it in my car. Yeah. From people at work. I mean, this was not that long ago. So it's still pretty woo woo, but to you, it just. Maybe it's the gravity thing. It's really pretty grounded too, right?
Well, it was such an interesting thing because it was such a... Well, first of all, there's a lot of reasons, let's be honest, why the word meditation has so many bizarro connotations. I'm probably more of a Columbus, Ohio type of a guy than I am a Marin County type of a guy, or Berkeley. I have a Midwest sensibility about myself that everybody says, but there's a lot of nutty stuff. But you can have a lot of nutty doctors, but that doesn't mean that there's not one doctor that's really good, or a lot of crazy medications. That doesn't mean that one isn't really good. And so I was never one to be overly influenced by other people's opinions about things. I made up my own mind. I wasn't, after like my freshman year in high school or something, going along with the crowd wasn't or maybe it was my junior year, wasn't as important to me. But when I learned it in June 28th, 1969, was when I started. I remember I went back to I didn't want to tell, my sister was also a student there at Berkeley, and I needed a place to meditate. And she was living with her boyfriend, and she had a deck in the backyard. And I didn't want to tell her what I was doing because it seemed a little strange. So I remember going and meditating on the deck in the backyard. And that's the last time I ever did that, because I got bit by about 100 mosquitoes. And I realized, Bob, just, to your sister, you don't have to hide anything. But it was a long time before meditation slowly started to gain some credibility. But for me, it was my own intuition, my own sense that this was physically very real, very relaxing. When I learned it, I didn't have to believe in anything. They didn't ask me to change my religion or my lifestyle. My teacher didn't do anything. My teacher said, here's a technique that you can do on your own. Once it takes an hour a day over 4 days to learn it. It's yours. You can do it however, whenever you want it. And it's going to help you with your health. And it did, Brett. It was so relaxing. And immediately I started sleeping better. And immediately my mind, I could remember when I'd read a book on whatever it was, history or physics or literature, or whatever I was studying in the first year, second year, basic stuff. My mind was like a sieve. I just held on to things. And then I just kept doing it. And then I got more interested in, well, if this is so good for me, maybe it could be useful for someone else. And I remember having the thought after I learned, maybe this is the tool I want to bring those kids. Because that had been my thought. I'll get a degree and I'll become I'll get a doctorate in curriculum development, and then I'll bring tools to kids. And I remember thinking, almost puzzled, oh, maybe this is the tool that I'm going to bring those kids. And that was, 51 years ago.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think, it is starting to really unfold as I'm hearing you tell the story, moving from legal to education, and then the meditation as a tool to help educate. I mean, it's really unfolding. And I'm wondering, just to kind of like last on this, piece, the woo-woo piece, I have a story with meditation that, was like as simple as seeing a poster on a light pole on campus that caught my attention, not having any exposure to meditation. And 20 some years later, having, had it really influenced my life profoundly, the whole set of circumstances to me does feel pretty woo-woo. It's hard for me to explain how a flyer caught my attention and changed my life, right? And so when you
working in a Swenson's ice cream parlor at 10 at night, going to get some ice cream, and some guy telling me something that I'd never even hadn't even resonated in me ever.
Yeah. So just elaborate on how do you make sense of this? What is your worldview, your belief around how these things are showing up for us in our lives, knowing that you're as grounded as you are in this technology?
Well, when you look back on your life, I think all of us do. They're just sort of moments where you meet a person, or just, it's a sort of a serendipitousness of the whole thing. Oh, you say, how'd you meet your wife? Well, I was at this, and I was on a blind date, and that didn't work. And then somebody came by and then introduced me, and then bam. So when they say when the time is right, the doctor appears or the teacher appears or something, when you're ready. And I guess I hadn't been ready the times before it crossed my path. But I don't know. What do you think? Tell me your take on that.
Well,
how would you explain that? How do you explain
I think it's probably more interesting to hear your thoughts than mine. But
I don't think so. I'm fascinated.
You're
Columbus. Wait a minute. No, Columbus, Ohio. You're a college student. 20 years ago, you're walking across. All right. You listen to the audience. Would love to hear. Just answer this one question, and then we'll go back.
No. I mean, I believe that there's a divine intelligence that's beyond our understanding, and it's always working and total perfection. And, it's nothing is really an accident, that things aren't lost or wasted. And, they show up, and we're grabbing them as we're ready. And I think that's kind of what it explains my whole life, that it's all been there for me to learn and for my benefit. Even the stuff that was really, really challenging served me just beautifully well over time.
And is that divine intelligence, is that part of a Christian upbringing? Is it just your own sense?
No, it's, I was raised, in a Jewish household, culturally not as much kind of observant, really never engaged in the religion myself, never really learned it, understood it, just kind of went through the motions, celebrated with family, holidays, that kind of thing. It's really more of in fact, I tried on being an atheist for quite some time in my early adult years. And I did, because I really just couldn't make sense of, some of the religious pieces or the idea that there was something more to it. But through a number of different life experiences and work that I've done, I've kind of grown to see, this kind of intelligence at work in my life. And it's just a belief system now that I have and feel and experience as I move through the world.
That's very beautifully put. I think from my perspective, I think that there's two things. There is that, whether you say it's divine intelligence or laws of nature or whatever, cosmic intelligence. I think my role is to be awake, to take advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves. That I was given those opportunities early on, but when I heard about meditation, and it just didn't resonate. The thing came to me, but it didn't resonate. I didn't hear it. And I think for me, it's a matter of just being awake and capitalizing, taking advantage of the gifts that are offered, whether you call it divine intelligence, cosmic intelligence, nature, natural law.
Right.
I do believe that, I don't believe it's all chaos. I'll put it that way.